So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research at Georgia State University, I would like to welcome you all to the 7th Annual World Language Week. CULTR, as the center is known, is one of 16 federally funded Title VI language research centers in the United States. CULTR has created a unique identity around serving the needs of all students and the communities they represent by helping to promote language learning opportunities as part of 21st century global education. Guided by its core values of access, advocacy, outreach, and research, CULTR has gained a national reputation for innovative approaches to promoting access to language education for all students, regardless of their socioeconomic and ethnic background. I'm David Maimon, Director of the Evidence-Based Cybersecurity Research Group at Georgia State University. And I'd like to thank you for being here with us today for the National Security Panel, which I'll be moderating. Before introducing the panelists, I'd like to address a couple of housekeeping and technical questions. First, I would like to remind everyone that all panels this week are being recorded and will be available after the event. All attendees will remain muted throughout the entire session. If for some reason your connection is interrupted during the panel discussion, simply rejoin with the same link that you used previously. Our panel discussion of approximately 35 to 40 minutes will be followed by Q&A with you, the attendees. Students may submit questions throughout the course of the discussion and after the discussion in the Q&A box by clicking on chat icon at the bottom of your screen. If you like questions you see, click the thumbs up icon to promote this question to the top of the list. This panel session will conclude at 1 o'clock. Now, let's meet the panelists. We have two great panelists with us today, Monica Alvarez and Mona Pastelwaite. Monica Alvarez is a supervisory foreign language program coordinator with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And Mona Pastelwaite is a language analyst and training representative with the National Security Agency. Welcome both to our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, David.
So without further ado, let me start with a short introduction. It'll be really cool, I think, for the attendees to know who you guys are. And it'll be, I think, really beneficial for us all to know what are kind of your responsibility in the organization you work with. So maybe, Monica, we'll start with you. What can you tell us about your responsibility as a supervisory language program coordinator for the FBI?
That's a great question. Well, I manage the foreign language program in the Atlanta division. I obtain language support for any cases that require it, and also any help that is needed as far as any language or cultural support. I manage a team of employee linguists and contract linguists. I serve as their rating official. I do provide feedback for them on a quarterly basis regarding their performance. I also make sure that we do anything in accordance with our rules and standard operating procedures and policies, and also make sure that if there are any training needs, either by the linguist or any of the other personnel in our office as far as foreign language goes, that I point them in the right direction where they can get those. That's pretty much in a nutshell.
Great.
Keep an assembly line going.
Right. Mona, how about you? Can you tell us a little bit about your responsibilities and the type of work you do as a language analyst for the NSA?
Sure. So the role I'm in right now, it's a role that a lot of our language professionals work in. It's called a multidiscipline language analyst. And it's basically where you use your language skills to help analyze different information, different intelligence materials. So my day can be filled with lots of different tasks, translating, looking for patterns in different information that we receive, and we also do a lot of coordinating with a lot of intelligence agencies. We learn what their needs are and their requirements, and we look for information that meets their requirements. We use our language skills to do that. So we work closely with a lot of agencies, including CIA, FBI, DIA, NCIS, and it's very rewarding when we can help them find the information they're looking for, when we can put the puzzle pieces together and kind of build out that entire story to find out what's going on so that they can then develop policies or take actions based on that. So yeah, I enjoy it. It's very fascinating, and I really enjoy the analysis behind it.
Let's go. So you know, that would lead me to my next question, right? Which you know, I'm very curious about what inspired you to sort of, you know, get into this field.
You want me to go first, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Sure. So I call myself a language geek. I just enjoy studying languages. I enjoy the challenge of it. I enjoy just learning how different languages work. And it started a long time ago, back when I was in elementary school. And for some strange reason, I found this Spanish book, and I decided I was going to teach myself how to speak Spanish out of the blue. And I thought, how difficult could that be, right? And as I was reading it, because I thought, oh, all you do is you memorize a few words and then you know a new language, right? But as I was trying to figure it out, I noticed, what's these words? They keep changing. Why? You know, first you said it was hablo and now it's habla. This makes no sense. And I found it fascinating as I figured it out. Oh, as I put it together, oh, you have to learn all these different rules on how to put these sentences together. And I got really fascinated by that. And I just continued studying languages in high school. I did AP Spanish and AP French. And then I was very fortunate to get a scholarship from the National Security Agency, NSA, where I work. And one of the languages they needed was Chinese. And so they paid me to study Chinese. And then as a requirement of that, then I came back to work for NSA. And that was, I hate to say how many years ago that was, but about 31, 32 years ago, and I'm still there now. So.
Good for you. Monica, how about you? What inspired you to get into this field?
Well, 33 years ago, I started also my career with the FBI as a language analyst. I started out in the Chicago field office, then I worked in the Charlotte division, and then came to the Atlanta division to work. I had the joy of working different violations. My language was Spanish, so of course, the usual suspects, drugs and gangs. I was able to work some domestic crime, some healthcare fraud here and there. And I really enjoyed it. When the opportunity came up for me to apply for the supervisor position, I hopped right on it. One of my favorite things to do is to help people have a better quality of work life. And I also was very interested in the work that the other linguists in other languages do. They get to work different violations and different types of cases that I get to work. So now I get to get a broader view of what they're doing. It's been extremely rewarding. It's very gratifying to work both as a linguist and as a supervisor. I get to work with, you know, not only people from Atlanta division, but also other agencies, as Mona mentioned. We work closely with other law enforcement entities. I also get to interact daily with our headquarters components and my counterparts in the other field offices. So it's very enriching, and I learn something every single day, even at the 33rd year mark. So I really like this, and I encourage everybody to check it out.
It does sound very exciting, right? But can you walk us maybe through a typical day of your organization in the context of course, the role you serve, your team? I mean, how things look like on a daily basis for you, Monica?
Right. Never a typical day, that's for sure. And that pretty much goes for all roles within the FBI. You know, we can have our plan of what we will be working on that day, but anything can happen. I mean, you see things happening in the news, and if it's something that is within the FBI's purview or jurisdiction, we have to jump to it. And everybody jumps in as needed. So for the most part, you know, we show up, we, you know, in my case, I just want to make sure that everybody has the tools that they need to do their work, that their source materials are available to them, that they have the proper training, that they know what they're looking for, and that sort of thing. But often we'll come in and, you know, something will happen that will require for me to deploy linguists to a different location or even a different state. And so we have to just be ready. So if this job is not for a person that likes, you know, to have a set schedule every day, for the most part, we do, but anything can happen and we just have to be ready to go. If they call me and they say, you know, we need a X language person to come and assist us at XYZ location, then we have to be ready to go. Also, the foreign language program in the FBI is a national program. So if we don't have the language locally, we do have access to the about 100 languages and dialects available with people throughout the US. So if we can't cover something with our local resources, then we'll work to bring somebody from another division to help us out.
Interesting. How about you, Mona, and your group within the NSA? Can you help us understand a typical day?
Well, so a typical day, we kind of, your typical day starts with you kind of going through your different materials, your different materials, foreign language materials that you're seeing. And a lot of times you'll be looking for different information, specific information, or you'll maybe try and figure out what code words maybe are being used, or look for different patterns in the different language communications that you're seeing. Or you might also reach out to a customer to get more, to figure out, can you give me some clues on what I need to be looking for? And that can be very interesting. We work with a whole range of people. We work with imagery analysts, we work with different people, and that helps us to figure out, oh, that gives me more knowledge of what's going on. And then I know what kind of language keywords I need to be looking at and how to go about that. Excuse me, I am so sorry. Okay. And the other thing I also wanted to point out, because Monica had mentioned different language tools and applications, we also have a different field called a scientific linguist. And they are people who have a background in like computational linguistics or data analytics, and they help us to develop different language applications or develop better processes for looking for the language in our materials and more efficient ways to do things. So, sorry about that.
No, all good. I mean, so in the conversations we had before this, sort of a preparation discussion and meeting we had, is I think I told you guys what my group does, and most of what we do involves gather a lot of intelligence from darknet platforms and encrypted communication platforms where online criminals simply discuss with each other all kind of activity, all kind of nefarious activities that they would like to get involved in, that they were involved in, all kind of material and illicit commodities they, you know, they're trying to sell or purchase, right, on those underground markets. And so in this sense, you know, I spent some time thinking about the way your work looked like, I don't know, 20 years ago. Versus the way things look like today, right? So can you speak a little bit to the difference and whether there's a difference, right, with respect to your current roles, right, and your responsibilities once internet technology and computing technology got into the, you know, got into the picture? something changed during the last 20 years in this context? Of course, with the focus of your specific roles. Maybe Mona, you want to start with this one?
Oh, yes, it has changed so much. And I think it makes, I mean, the job has always been fascinating, but it has definitely brought a lot more challenges. And I think one of the biggest challenge is that technology is always changing. So you have to constantly keep abreast of new technologies, which makes it, you know, it makes it very interesting job, but it also makes it very challenging. And one of the things I want to mention is this kind of language job. It's a great job for anybody, you know, even if language is not your major, but you just know you like language and you know you want to work with language. We definitely need people who have a background in cybersecurity and language, or have a background in computers and language, or in financial systems and language, because even the new financial technology is getting so complex and trying to figure out how that works. So we definitely encourage people who, because maybe you just know, I really like language, I want, whatever I do, I wanted to include language, but definitely if you also have an interest in science, computer, math, even different technologies, that's one of our biggest challenges. Right now, we assume any technology we're working with today is going to change in about a year or two, and we'll have to figure out a new way of doing things. And people who like that challenge, working with NSA, it's a great place to work, because that's a lot of what you do. Kind of your job is to kind of see ahead, like what's the next thing coming. So we're always, you know, try and keep up with the new technologies. And definitely, yeah, using the language, you're always learning to use new tools and learn how people are using their technology, because you have to understand how they're using their technology, how they're communicating, which changes from time to time, to understand, you know, what you're looking at.
Interesting. Monica, how about you? Have you observed a change during the last couple of, I don't know, years?
Monumental changes. Yes. When I started, I used to handwrite my translations, and then I would send them to the steno pool, and then the steno pool would type them for me, and then I would review them. And if I needed to make any changes, I would send it back, and they would retype it for me. So of course, we are now using our own equipment and our own tools to create our own translations. Excuse me. I thought somebody was going to say something. We work very closely too with intelligence analysts, in special agents, staff operations specialists, and forensic accountants, and lend our foreign language expertise to them. So we don't necessarily have to be experts in any of those tools. They're very talented people, though we do have some people that are, most linguists are second career people, and we have many people that were programmers or computer scientists in the past. So of course, they understand some of those nuances a lot better than I would. But it's not necessary. And because we work closely with the agents, as you know, the terminology is evolving and changing on a daily basis. It seems like we just have to be able to turn on a dime and be able to keep up as best we can. We do provide the linguists with training on certain tools so that they're not at a disadvantage. But working closely with the other job roles, we are able to you know, just come up with the most accurate translations, because most of our translation work is from the foreign language into English. So, you know, getting the terminology right is of importance. But because we're working with people that are experts in those areas, and not just in the cyber realm, obviously, but it can be anything. They usually will help us with that terminology if the linguist is unfamiliar with the subject matter expertise, you know, of the subject matter of the work that we're seeing. Also, in the private sector, linguists get to specialize. And so you have literary linguists, scientific linguists, people that just do a certain genre. In the FBI, we don't have that luxury. We have to be able to do everything. When time permits, we'll get that source material to the subject matter experts. But if there is no time, we just have to do our best at the time.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to add a little bit more about kind of what we do at NSA. Definitely, we love it when we have technical people who also know language, but you definitely do not have to be a technical person. I was not a technical person at all. My major was Chinese, really had no technical background starting. And, you know, the interesting thing I found was that despite that, I was able to work with technical people and we were able to put our heads together and sometimes figure out, you know, we get something that's very complex, but we could work together to figure out what it was saying. And I've worked several technical, you know, targets over the years, and I learned to love it. I learned to love the challenge of using my language, working with people who had that technical knowledge, and then we could analyze the pieces together and kind of put together what was going on. And also getting, as Maria said, and also at NSA, we'll give you some subject matter training in some of these areas. If you want to go all the way and become a full-fledged expert, you can. Or like me, I think my key portion is I'm never going to be as good as those super technical people, but I try and bring my analytical skills and have enough of a background that I can understand those key points and then bring the language knowledge and the analysis to it. And so we have both. We have the very technical language people, but we also have the very analytical language focused people who know how to bring that language side and analysis side to what they're looking at.
So it sounds like a very collaborative effort, you know, with the technical folks, with, you know, the folks who are doing language. Very interesting. So I assume that many of our students are really interested in this line of work, right? And they would like to, you know, take part at some point in this work. Is there any advice that you guys can share for students who wish to pursue a career in your field? For example, what kind of curricular pathways students should pursue in order to maybe at some point get a position with your team? Mona, maybe. Oh, Monica, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Monica.
Well, I wanted to jump in because I wanted you to ask that question. For FBI linguists, they can have any any degree that they want that's of interest. The important part is that they're able to pass our exams or at the professional level, and so they are tested on their reading, listening, writing, and speaking ability. And again, they must be able to speak at a professional level, so meaning at your level. And for every other job role, we of course will take any degree in any accredited university, but of course, just like everybody else, the Bureau is seeking people with the STEM disciplines, also with cyber, accounting, and law degrees. Those are very helpful. But for the most part, most people that are working with a degree that they love, they're going to be very happy and productive employees too.
Interesting. Mona, how about the NSA?
So I would say if you love languages, the best curricular path is to find a way to use the time in college to get really good at your language and find all the resources there to really perfect your language skills. There are so many more resources out there than when I was in school. So just take that time to perfect it. Same as Monica, what we really focus on is people who can pass our language test. We don't test in speaking or writing, but we do test in reading and listening. So we have a test that we use called the DLPT-5, or Defense Language Proficiency Test 5. It's put out by the Defense Language Institute. It can be challenging because it'll cover a wide range of subject matters, but being able to pass that test is probably the key point to getting a job. And I would say, you know, you may also take the time to find out what your niche is, and in case you do have a niche that you think you would like to pursue. There's so many different targets and fields that we deal with, whether it be cyber or economics or science, or even just having a very good background in political science also helps us, international affairs, all of that. It's good to bring your language, and if you could add a niche to it, I think it also makes you even more competitive.
So, you know, in that vein, so is there tangible steps that students can take in order to potentially land a job with your organization? Mona?
Tangible steps. Well, like I said, get really, really good in your language. There are, or if you, like I said, myself, I just knew I wanted to study language. I hadn't necessarily, well, I mean, before getting the scholarship, I had not thought about Chinese, or even later I studied Russian. But I would just say right now, just if you're like a high school senior or something, looking for something right now, that some of the language we're looking for, definitely Chinese and Russian are the top. Farsi and Korean also. So those are some of the languages I would be looking at right now. If you say, I just want to study language, I just love the process, and you're trying to nail down which language you're looking at. Like I said, take the time to focus on your language, get a good solid foundation. We will give you language training once you start with us. There's a lot of exciting language training opportunities if you get hired on. And yeah, just focus on language. There's a lot of great resources out there on the internet to focus on your listening skills, your reading skills, and making sure you have that broad background. And if you have another interest you can add to it, like medicine or science or computers, that's always great.
How about in the FBI, Monica? Tangible steps that folks can take?
Absolutely. And I should mention too that linguists within the FBI, our level of threshold is quite high because we also testify in court as subject matter experts. And so most of the FBI linguists are either foreign born or spend a significant amount of time abroad in full immersion training. So that's very important. But for the other job roles, a language ability is definitely a plus. But because they are applying for a different role, the level where they need to be is less. Anybody that comes on a different job role other than a linguist can apply to take a language test. They can take any of the reading, the writing, the listening, or the speaking. Most of the time, most people take the speaking. It's the easiest one to administer. And also, as far as getting any kind of on-the-job training, we have an excellent intern program for college undergraduates and graduate students. It's a 10-week program during the summer. We usually accept applications between August and September, and that way we can process them for their security clearance, and then they're ready to come on with us in the summer. They work alongside agents, analysts, every job role, and they work on actual cases, and they have a role in trying to do whatever the goal for that case is. So it is very much hands-on, and it's an excellent opportunity for them not only to see what they're doing in that particular squad that's working that particular threat, but then they can also see what other types of work is available, and maybe they wanted to become an agent and they see that their intelligence analyst position is better suited with what they want to offer, and vice versa. It's just an excellent opportunity for students. So students should be on the lookout for that posting sometime around August and September of every year.
Interesting, very, very, very cool. How about in the NSA?
So,
do you guys have any internship opportunities?
Yes, we also have a summer language internship where college students can come in during the summer and work as actual analysts, and they will work side by side with other analysts and kind of see how we do things. So it's called the Summer Language Intern Program, I believe, and I think we're accepting applications right now through October 31st. So definitely, if that's something you're interested in, it would be a great opportunity to apply and see if this is something you would do, and you can come for multiple summers if you like it the first summer and want to keep trying it. And our requirements is that you need to have studied, I think, a few semesters of a language, but you don't have to score as high as you would normally score for a full-time position, because we know that you're still learning. So definitely, if it's something you're interested in, you can apply, go through that process, and then you'll get a taste of what it's like at NSA. You'll also get a taste of our language test and know what's on it, so you can better prepare when you go back to school.
Interesting. Let's jump into some intercultural communication questions that we've prepared for you guys. I mean, I think that we've covered, unless we have more questions, we can address those, once we are about to wrap, right, from the audience. But I would like to touch in few intercultural communication questions that, to me are really interesting, to get your thoughts about. So how does intercultural communication play a role in your current position? How does it manifest itself on a daily basis? Mona, maybe you want to start with this one.
Okay, so one of the things I found with all of the different targets that we follow, they each have their own unique culture, their own unique way of communicating. And so that's one of the things that you need to learn and learn how to apply. And I would like to mention one of our programs. If you were to come work at NSA, you first start out in one of our language analysis and development programs. And what that means is it's a 2 to 3 year program. So you get to kind of tour around and see different offices and different targets and what they do, because you'll find, like, depending on the target you work, whether it's a very technical target or maybe it's a more, they're just different types of targets that we work, and they have different communication styles. And a lot of the things that we do is something called social network analysis, figuring out who are the players, who's in charge of who reports to who, and putting that social network together. That's fascinating, and you need to understand that kind of intercultural communication and how people communicate. And I find it because you learn one target and you think you know something, and then you move to a different target and you find out these people communicate totally differently. I have to put total different patterns of communication together to figure out what's going on. So it's so fascinating, and definitely understanding that and putting those patterns together and understanding the different types of slang and code switching that people use. That's very helpful.
How about you, Monica?
Well, as you would imagine, within the FBI, I have the most privileged position to manage a most diversified team of linguists. And so, of course, I am immersed in that every day, and I'm learning from them about their culture, their history, the religion and customs that they have. And as such, we provide cultural expertise to the agents and to the analysts. For example, if they're going to be talking to a certain group, we want to make sure that they know about the nuances in the culture and the do's and the don'ts. We want to make sure that they're able to bridge any cultural gaps by making sure that they're cognizant of any of those intricacies in the culture. And we do a lot of cultural training and briefings, and especially, because we can have any victims or subjects or witnesses at any given moment. And we definitely want to make sure that we are able to have a productive and positive conversation with the people.
Interesting. What role does language proficiency and cultural awareness play in recruitment and hiring process in the FBI, Monica?
Well, again, we're working very hard to be a more diversified agency, not just with our foreign language program, but across the Bureau, because we are serving the public, and we want to be as much like the public that we serve, especially because we need to gain people's confidence. Most of our cases usually come from tips from private citizens or through crimes that were committed, but we want people to be able to come to us and trust us. And the more that they see that there's a like-minded or a like a person with a similar background, they're going to probably be able to trust us a lot quicker than they would otherwise. And also another thing that the FBI is doing is we're having a lot of cultural diversity events throughout the year in order to also help the rest of us that are not as immersed in that and as knowledgeable about other cultures.
Interesting. Mona?
Yeah, I think diversity is very important because when we're doing analysis, we definitely need to have diverse points of view and diverse experiences to make sure we're taking into account, all the different perspectives when we're seeing, a different communications or different communication patterns. And so I think right now in our current recruitment efforts, we definitely are searching for people from diverse backgrounds, and we definitely always want diverse cultures because the targets that we're looking at, they come from diverse cultures, and we need different backgrounds, different perspectives to make sure we're taking everything into consideration when we do our analysis. And it also just makes our agency better as a whole, just, serving the nation if we have diverse people, at the agency serving and representing our nation.
Awesome. So we have 5 more minutes for this particular section before we open, the floor to the attendees to ask several questions. But I will not let you go before I ask you 2 questions that I'm particularly am interested in. The first is what is one of the most valuable lessons that you have learned over the course of your career in this field? Mona, maybe you want to start with this one.
Ooh, what is one of the most valuable lessons? Oh gosh, that's a tough one.
I will not let you go before you answer this one, right?
I just think what I tell people is always be open to any new challenge, any new idea. Sometimes, you think, oh, I could never be good at this. I could never take this on. I remember one office when I first went to it, I was like, there is no way I'm going to enjoy this target. And it ended up being one of the most favorite targets that I've ever worked. And a lot of times, especially when we get new analysts in, they're like, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do that. You'd be surprised the different things that you can do if you just apply yourself and take the challenge. And always remember, one of the great things working here, we work with so many experts who are experts in their field and can help you with anything. And don't be afraid to ask a question. Definitely don't be afraid, because everybody is so helpful. And if you just raise your hand and ask the question, you'll find, you can take on any challenge. So that would be my advice.
I think it's an awesome lesson. Don't be afraid to ask questions, right? That's great. Monica, how about you?
Mona said it so well, but definitely, I think there are 2 things that I look for in particular, and I think that this usually translates into a very successful individual, and that's a positive attitude and teachability. Because we all come in knowing a lot of things, but that doesn't mean we know everything or we know every way to do something. So I think that if people are open, again, like Mona said, to learning new things and jumping in there, and also the positive attitude comes in that there are some hard days. We sometimes see things that are heartbreaking, and we nothing prepares you for that other than just having a positive attitude. And probably one of my favorite things about working in the Bureau is that we are not in a vacuum. Everybody's there to help each other. If I don't know it, and I know a subject matter expert somewhere that knows it, we're always very happy to help each other out. We have people that are willing to be mentors and coaches and trainers. And that is really my favorite part. It's just everybody's willing to lend a hand. Nobody is out there doing anything on their own, and they don't have to. They can if they want to, but they don't have to. We always help each other out.
Awesome.
That is probably one of the best thing. Don't do everything on your own. Always, collaboration, we always work better together. If you sit there in a box and you don't share what you're doing with other people, you'll find out somebody else has that critical piece of information. And if you just were more open and were sharing and saying, hey, I need a little extra help. And that's one of the things I've learned over the time. There's always somebody else there with another piece of information, and just, try and collaborate as much as you can.
Teamwork. It's all about teamwork. Huh?
Certainly.
All right, let's open it to the attendees right now. We have several really interesting questions folks are sending your way. The first one deals with your level of proficiency in your L2 when you started working. What were your, how proficient were you in your language skill when you started working, and how does that compare to your proficiency now? Monica, let's start with you.
Well, I think that I was very lucky. I scored very high on the exams, and I don't know how. I wasn't nearly as prepared at the beginning as I later on became prepared, because it's the same thing. You learn by doing. So before I started working with the Bureau, I wasn't doing a lot of translation work. Of course, I had been translating and I had been interpreting, but in a very informal way. And so we grow and develop and improve across time. One of the better things that I can tell you is just do what you love and do it in the foreign language. So if you like listening about baseball, then listen about baseball in a foreign language, or read about cooking in a foreign language, whatever interests you. And that, I think that's an excellent way to learn a language, because if you're trying to learn about something that you have no interest in, it might not work. And I think eventually it will come, because as we grow and develop, also our curiosity expands so much more. And of course, I don't do translation work anymore, other than just informally. And I really do miss it, but it's an excellent career, and just very rewarding. One of the things that I like to see a lot is that the FBI puts on excellent training events abroad, and when the linguists have to translate the training, some of them are incredibly difficult, and just seeing them master that is just truly amazing.
Great. Mona?
Okay, so to get hired at NSA, or to get hired full-time, the requirement is to be something called level 2 on the Interagency Language Roundtable, the ILR. So, you can Google that and find a description. Generally you have to be level 2 in reading and listening. So when I got hired on, we had an exam that we took back then. Now we take the DLPT-5. But so my language proficiency at that time was 2.2. What I will say is, when I first hired on, you say, what was your language proficiency? Let me put it this way. I thought I knew more than I actually did. And the more and more I study language, the less and less I realize I know. Language learning, it's like, a never ending process. But I enjoy the challenge. Now my scores, they vary between 3+, 3+. But there's so much to learn, and it's so fascinating. But I love the fact that you get so much training at the agency. We encourage people to take training. We like people to take a minimum of 80 hours of training every 2 years, but certainly you can take more, and there are people that take more. I generally take more than that. And generally your managers are very encouraging of that. We used to send people on, immersion training. That's obviously for certain things going on right now, has been put on hold. But I have done something called an ISO immersion, where you and some folks, they actually set you up in a house, and you have teachers with you. And actually I had a chance to go out to California, and we would do go to Chinatown and do different exercises. And we lived in the house, and we spoke nothing but Chinese the entire entire time. We really did. Hopefully one day we'll be doing that again, but we have to see obviously what happens with COVID and different things. But right now we do still have language courses that people are taking, and they're all, well, we start at level 2, obviously, but we also teach to the very, very highest levels. And I'm always learning and I love it.
So you mentioned COVID, and there's a question here, whether the pandemic actually changed your work and your daily sort of operation. Has it, Monica? Or Mona? Let's start with Mona.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yes, we do a lot more virtual meetings now.
Okay.
Which I think is good. It's good and bad. I mean, I think there are some value to face-to-face meetings and analysts getting together and kind of hashing things out. But definitely a lot of our meetings now are held virtually. So this has actually helped language training in some ways, because sometimes we have people in different locations, different sites, where now they can join in training. If somebody's in Utah and another person's here in the DC area, they can all join in virtually in one class. So it definitely has changed. I think it's opened us up to new possibilities, but I also think there is some value of face-to-face analysis work and face-to-face language training. So hopefully, I'm hoping like within a year or two, we'll get back to that.
Awesome. And Monica, within the context of the FBI, has COVID changed things?
Absolutely. I mean, we usually had face-to-face meetings, and of course that ended abruptly, and then we had to start meeting virtually. And of course that poses problems for us, because some of us were working from home while others were working in the office. And, we don't have access to our internal enclave when we're out of the office. So that definitely posed some challenges. And also when you're meeting online, of course, it's wonderful, because if you have to meet online, it's perfect. And, we should not meet just because we're not able to do it in person, but you miss a lot of nonverbal cues when talking to people, and just the human factor, the human touch. But also it's a great way for us to bridge those barriers and the gaps that we have in our communication, if that's the only way that we are able to accomplish that, either via Zoom or just any kind of face-to-face meeting via the computer. We're just happy that we have the technology, because it's very important. Of course, we all look forward to meeting in person again, and having everybody together in a room.
Yeah. Folks are really interested in employment eligibility in your agency. Monica, can you talk about this in the context of the FBI, please?
Yes, of course. Well, definitely there are some requirements for people to join the FBI. The first requirement is U.S. citizenship. Unfortunately, a permanent resident cannot be hired. And then at the risk of sounding like everybody's mother is stay away from drugs, but that's definitely one of our disqualifiers. And there are certain levels, I think marijuana, not any more recent than 3 years ago, and hard drugs, I think more than 10 years ago. And of course, it limited quantity, limited availability, no marijuana use, even if it is legal in your state. Obviously, no felony convictions, making sure people are paying their taxes. For students, very important for them to keep up with their student loans. And there's a full list of disqualifiers at the FBIjobs.gov website.
Interesting. Mona, how about the NSA?
I will say ditto everything Monica said. Yes, so you have
good,
to be,
in general, that's what you're saying.
yes, you have to be a U.S. citizen. Definitely, I would say stay away from drugs, keep up with your financial obligations. Once you apply, there's a whole list of questions. You'll fill out a form, and our security office will process your application. I cannot really say who can and who cannot be cleared. close foreign associations could hamper your ability to get hired. Recent travel to China or Russia could hamper your ability
Oh, wow.
to get get hired. But you know, that's always a call for security. I say if you're interested, always apply. Certainly, we've had people get hired. The security has its own process. So if it's something that interests you and you're a U.S. citizen, please apply.
And David, if I might add, and I think probably this is the case for NSA as well, they have to be able to obtain a top secret clearance. So of course that involves with a polygraph, drug testing, background investigation, full scope background investigation. The one thing that I will mention is for those of you that are interested, do not do any research on polygraph, because people that do don't usually do very well. It gets in their mind and it confuses everything. So just don't. If you are interested, you can always, once you apply, you can ask the person that you're working with in your recruitment or in your processing to let you know what that entails. But just very important to be able to get a top secret clearance.
Yeah, and the other thing, which should be obvious, don't lie on your application. I mean, that can be like a straight away disqualifier. I mean, you know, security understands sometimes things happen. So if, you know, something happened in your background and if you're honest about it, sometimes, just be honest, don't lie about anything on your application or during any type of interview process.
Awesome. Our audience really wants to know what's the most challenging part of your job. And if you can elaborate on that pre-COVID and, now. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and this is a great misconception with the FBI, because I think people think that everybody's a special agent, and we are not. Clearly now, I've talked about different job roles, but probably one of the most challenging aspects of our work is the time that it takes to get through an investigation. This is a very delayed gratification type of work, and often we don't see the fruit of our labor until much later, sometimes years. And so we have to be very patient, and we have to be very calm and just continue plugging away at something that just doesn't seem like it's ever going to end. But just know that when it does end, then it's just, it makes our day when something has been resolved. So that is probably the hardest part of our work.
Interesting. Mona?
So I will say the most challenging part is sometimes you feel like you're looking for a needle in a haystack, and it's figuring out, like, how do I find those unknowns? How do I plug in the holes when I see that, I know something's going on, but I have to figure out, how do I go about that information that I need? How do I find that needle in the haystack? And sometimes you can just find creative ways to do it. Sometimes you put your head together. Sometimes you talk to different collection managers, different technical people to say, hey, we know this is going on. How do we figure out how to get to it? And that's sometimes the most challenging part, but when you do, it's the most rewarding part.
Great. One more question from our audience. On top of your career, can you talk about how these global skills and experiences have enriched your life overall? Whoever wants to take on this first.
I'd be happy to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that, having had the experiences in travel and in living in different countries, and also now meeting people from different countries and different cultures, it definitely has enriched my life. It makes it a lot more interesting, and it gives it a lot of context, because I am so appreciative of everybody else's culture, their religion, their customs, because now I'm understanding what is the meaning behind them, and how some of those are just so, regarded so closely in their hearts and their minds. And it's just really I just feel like a lot of gratitude. And also I just, the incredible privilege to have been serving and working in this capacity. And, I will never be a millionaire. Nobody working in the FBI will ever be a millionaire, but we are so rich in every other way. Just a very, very gratifying career.
Mona, do you have anything? to add to?
Yeah, it's enriched my life because it's definitely given me a lot of opportunities to travel, meet different people, just meeting different people in the intelligence community and applying my skills and that analysis. And I'm always get a kick out of seeing how grateful people are for what you do and how you've helped with their investigation or their analysis. And that's really great. And it's kind of I just find learning language enriching just in and of itself. It always kind of when you find out you can learn how to completely think in a totally different way and express yourself. And it's kind of like when you're speaking a foreign language, you almost feel like you're training your mind to kind of rearrange itself. And I find it fascinating and enriching, and I just love doing it. So that in itself, I love.
Awesome. We have a question. I'm not sure whether you guys are in a position to answer this or not, but it seems to be a popular question, on our platform here. Does the FBI plan to come in for an in-person visit to GSU next year? And if so, when? Same thing for the NSA. Do you know whether your organization are about to come and visit?
As soon as we are permitted, we'll definitely jump to it. Of course, yes, we are looking forward to meeting people in person again.
Yeah, and I assume it's the same for NSA, right?
Yes, I will say it's probably the same as soon as we can. I would expect that we would.
Okay, we have time for one more question, right? So, maybe we'll try to. How long is the hiring process with the NSA and the FBI? I mean,
so for the FBI, for linguists, because most of us have lived abroad and traveled extensively, from application time to time that you walk through the door, it can be up to 2 years. For every other, position, or even if it's a linguist position, if you have been born, raised, and lived in country, you can have traveled and everything. It probably takes anywhere between 6 to 8 months, give or take a minute.
How about the NSA, Mona?
So as I mentioned, our application is out right now for summer internship. So if they're able to, they will try to clear you, obviously, before the summer. Hopefully you would hear, I think around April or May, but that's for our summer for the student program. But for a typical person, it definitely depends. I would say it would probably take at least a year, but sometimes longer. Sometimes I've heard of people waiting 2 or 3 years, sometimes more. So it definitely depends. It depends on everybody's background. I can't give a definite time length, but definitely if it's something you're interested in, coming in and getting cleared for the summer program is a very good way. Once you've been cleared once, it definitely speeds up the process. The other thing, if you don't clear in time for the summer program, sometimes you'll be encouraged to apply for a regular hire, like when you graduate, and sometimes you have already gotten a jump on the process if you've already started with the summer program application. So
we're still getting questions, but unfortunately it's 12:57, and we will have to conclude this really interesting panel. I really want to thank you guys for participating in this panel. This concludes today's National Security Panel. On behalf of CULTR, I thank you for joining us. A reminder that recordings of all the panel discussion this week will be made available after the event. I invite you to complete the post-event survey available right after this Zoom session closes. The next World Language Week discussion is the diplomacy panel, which will take place today from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you guys all very much, and I look forward to meeting you hopefully in our next year panel.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be invited back. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Take care, you guys. And thank you all for attending the session.